As the devaluation of the dollar continues and world food supplies are threatened not just by a growing population but a variety of factors, soft commodities such as food continue to rise dramatically in cost. Investments in precious metals are most often extremely speculative, and at the end of the day, gold and silver are substances that you really cannot eat. We all must eat to stay alive. In that light, we're introducing to this audience a possible investment opportunity involving a company that is focused on the exploration and development of potassium sulfate minerals, otherwise known as potash, used in fertilizer. That company is ICPTF. IC Potash trades on the TSX Venture Exchange as ICP.V and in the U.S. as ICPTF. IC Potash's Ochoa Project in Lea County, New Mexico contains premium-priced potash necessary for maintaining sensitive crops such as high-starch potatoes, beans, nuts, fruits including strawberries, citrus, mangoes, cherries, and peaches, etc. Join me now for a conversation with Sidney Himmel, President and CEO of IC Potash, as we begin the education process regarding this resource with ever-increasing demand and a significant project in the land of enchantment, New Mexico. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
The price of food is certainly continuing to dramatically rise.
Well, we've seen some amazing trends in the price of food internationally and in North America. If you look at the price of meals, say in San Francisco, New York, well, people used to spend $9 for lunch. A couple of years ago, these prices have gone up to $13, $14. You're also finding there's a change in a major trend. Right now, the size of portions, certainly in the larger cities, are being reduced. They're not being increased. And that's because of the high food prices. If you look internationally, let's take a look at what's happening in the Middle East. There's been major revolutions going on. The Egyptian government has changed. There's potential revolutions in Syria. You've got fear in Yemen, Saudi Arabia. What's causing those is the fact that people cannot afford to eat meals and fill themselves up because major portions of their pretty small disposable income is going into food. These trends have occurred in the last 5 or 6 years. So what we're seeing in the world is something which we did not see since World War II. During the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s, people have been worrying about food prices. Those prices were coming down. The concern simply was distribution to get food to the poorer countries. That's now been reversing in the last 8 or 9 years. Corn prices have been going up phenomenally. Corn provides all kinds of food input. Corn also provides the main food for animals, cows and pork. Well, the government's been subsidizing the use of corn for fuel. We all know the price of corn's got to go up. You've got the rest of the world, which used to be the developing world, and right now is the developed world. They're consuming more food and better food. Their calories per capita has gone from 13 or 1400 calories per day up to what North Americans eat. Well, not quite what North Americans eat, but up to 2,000, 2,200 calories a day. And they're eating better quality food. They're eating fruits, they're eating vegetables, they're eating colorful foods, they're eating more processed carbohydrates. So that demand is causing food prices to go up. Furthermore, the amount of agricultural land continues to get reduced. We've heard how some of the South American countries are causing deforestation because they need more agricultural land. This is a whole slew of issues which have finally hit financial markets to the extent that right now the G20 is in Argentina meeting talking about commodity prices and how to control them, but particularly food prices.
How does your company IC Potash factor into the equation with regard to rising food prices? And in what way can your shareholders potentially benefit, per se?
We're in the business of trying to make food prices cheaper, and the business that we're in is the production of high-quality fertilizer, and the particular fertilizer is potassium. The more potassium that's used, the more productive the fields become, and the production per acre becomes larger in terms of the mass of plants produced. By increasing the specific product which we're making, which is sulfate of potash, we're also producing a mineral which is chemically what they call pH neutral. It doesn't increase the acidity of the ground. It doesn't increase the caustic nature of the ground. That's a very positive thing from an environmental perspective. Also, we don't have chlorides. Those are somewhat polluting in the soil. We don't have that. We've got sulfates. A lot of the soils are becoming very salty. And as anyone who has a beard, a bar nose, when you put salt in your mouth and the salt gets digested, you get dried. Salt absorbs water. And as these soils are getting more salty, it's getting harder for the plants to suck the water up into the stems, into their flowers, into the flesh of the fruit. And that's a problem. That means it takes more energy to produce plants and even more effort to get good productivity. Well, our sulfate of potash, which is produced in New Mexico, is the lowest salinity of any fertilizer whatsoever. Furthermore, we're a U.S. company. 3 or 4 years we'll be at full production in New Mexico. The United States is a major importer of potash. It produces some potash, about 1 million tons, but it also imports about 4 million tons. We're going to be producing 1 million tons of a quality potash. We'll be meeting the need for sulfate of potash in the United States. We have a very low cost. We're also going to be helping the farmers because they can get more potash for a somewhat better price. We're helping solve the high-cost food problem internationally. We're certainly doing it in the United States. We're also producing a product which is chemically, in terms of the environment, just about perfect. Even our mine operations, what we're using for processing the ore is water. We're not using acid. We're not using base. We're not using cyanide. You couldn't be more placid in a mining environment.
Of course, one of the keys to success for a mining company, or any company for that matter, is a strong management team.
There are perhaps 13 or 14 developing companies who are looking to develop potash projects. I think we're going to be one of the 3 or 4 who put a major billion-dollar project into production. And that's because of the team which we've assembled over the last 3.5 years. I think the primary skill set is an ability to attract really great people. So when you have a big asset and you have something which requires a lot of intelligence, a lot of finance, all kinds of different people have those skill sets, but a small number of them are top decile people, i.e. the top 10 out of 100, and an even smaller number know how to manage these people. Proper management of those skill sets is what makes the project come in on budget and on time. On the geology side, we've brought in a guy called Pat Okita. He's a consultant, but he gives us considerable time, and he's taking full responsibility for the finalization of the geology program. We essentially have completed that program. Now we're in an engineering mode. Pat was the head of industrial minerals for BHP, and those industrial minerals include potash and other such minerals, and he is a world-renowned potash expert whose only other client right now is one of the world's major mining companies involved in potash. And we've been able to attract a guy like that. He doesn't come here because he needs the money, because he's done well. He's in high demand. We've been able to attract him because I think he wants to be involved with the superior products is what we've got. He also wants to see a mine built. He likes working with bright people. On the geology side, we have a man who's probably the best mine superintendent for potash mining in the United States of America. His name is Randy Foote. Randy used to be the head of New Mexico operations for potash mining of Mississippi Chemicals, and subsequently when they were acquired by Intrepid, he worked at Intrepid Potash for a number of years. He's come to our company because he, again, wants to be involved with the building of a major mine. And this is a man who understands not only the marketing of potash and fertilizer in the United States, but how you run a mine. He understands the chemical operations, the mining operations. When you look at the mines he ran, he had 1,000 people reporting to him in all capacities. He also knows New Mexico. He knows the ore bodies. He knows the geology. This is a fantastic individual. And a guy like that's been able to attract chemical engineers, mining engineers who he's worked with for 10, 15, 20 years, and also environmental scientists. So you put together a team like that, and then you make sure you've got good financial backers. You're going to build that project on time, on budget, with the ability to produce outstanding returns for the investors. There's 3 key aspects to the business model for this company. Number 1, we've got a long life mine here. If you're going to build a mine, you don't want it to be 10, 15 years or 8 years. You want 40, 50 years. We have a mine with the resource space that will be producing for well over 50 years. Number 2, when you're in the mining business, because it's volatile, prices can go up and down. Even if the long-term trend is up, you want to be a low-cost producer. You want to be what they call a bottom quartile producer. That means your cost of production is in the bottom 25% of everybody's cost of production. What that means is if you get a down year or two, when the prices of the commodities come down, you're still making money. You don't need to lay people off. You continue, and that's a key business aspect for it. The third business aspect, we're selling a premium priced potash. Most potashes are called muriate of potash. Those are used for the carbohydrate crops, wheat, oats, barley, corn. And those are used for the crops that become one of 2 things, bread or beer. Those are the carbohydrate crops. And muriate of potash or potassium chloride is fine for those. But we're in the crops which are high-value crops from the perspective of the consumer, and also high-value crops from the perspective of the farmer. People who produce certain crops have to use potassium sulfate. And those crops are fruit and vegetables, potatoes, nuts, horticultural crops, and also an interesting crop, tobacco. If you don't use potassium sulfate, if you use potassium chloride, you're not going to produce sellable crops in this current environment. And that particular potassium sulfate, because of the high demand and because of the high cost of production for most people, not us, but for most people, sells for $150 per ton, more than regular potash. So what we have in this company then is a long life mine, a bottom quartile cost mine and a premium price product.
The market for premium priced potash is substantial domestically and internationally. This bodes well for IC Potash.
That's right. The U.S. demand for sulfate of potash is about 550,000 tons. For the company in Great Salt Lake that produces about 250,000 tons, we'd be producing 300,000 tons for the eastern United States for agriculture, with strong demand, of course, in Florida and the fruit-growing and vegetable-growing states. A lot of production is now moving to Mexico, so we're going to see increasing demand for sulfate of potash there. That'll be a major market. Central America are significant producers. That'll be another market. So just staying in the Americas, we'll be able to sell virtually all of our products.
We've been speaking with Sidney Himmel, President and CEO of sponsor company IC Potash, trading in the U.S. under the symbol ICPTF. Just type in ICPTF. Their website is icpotash.com. Find them also on potashblog.com and on the homepage of our website, ellismartinreport.com. In the coming weeks, we'll be speaking with other IC Potash Company principals, as well as getting updates from Sidney Himmel. The food story is not going away, not as long as we continue to eat. IC Potash is poised as a potential solution to rising food prices and creating healthier crops. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellis Martin, and I'm a shareholder of IC Potash.